Hey, James O'Leary here. This is video that I don't really know how it's going to go. I'm just hitting record with an overview and no real script, and probably just going to edit things together after as we go. Because if this video goes live, that means the announcement has just gone out about casting Bologna Regionals, and that I'll be there as a part of the broadcast team for Riftbound, which I am ecstatic about. Those of you that have followed me for a while will know I'm a huge TCG player. You can probably see deck boxes and stuff over my shoulders from Magic and multiple other games that I've played. So I am ecstatic. Ever since I saw Riftbound was even going to be a thing, when it was only a Chinese game, I thought, okay, if there are two things to crush together, a League of Legends card game is just exactly what I want to be working on. So initially seeing it only being a Chinese language product was kind of devastating. So the fact that not only is it now in English, in other languages as well, and I am going to be fortunate enough to work on the first European regionals. I really can't speak about how excited I am, which, considering I'm about to be on a broadcast to speak about how excited I am and how the game is, probably doesn't bode well at the beginning. So I wanted to make a video about my preparation of what goes into casting any kind of broadcast, whether that's trading card games, whether that's esports. I just wanted to kind of give a walkthrough of my first few weeks of going from like, I like this card game, to damn, I'm about to talk about this card game for an entire weekend, and there's going to be people watching that are better players than I, waiting to kind of hear what you have to say. So, I got told about 2 weeks ago, so I'm filming this on Saturday the 7th of February. So I've known about 2 weeks, and the last 2 weeks of prep has been intense, but it's going to get more intense as we get closer to the event. So I kind of break my preparation down into multiple ways of thinking about it. First of all, I think for a TCG especially, playtesting is really important. I've played Magic for so seriously played Magic since about 2012. Everson Restored was the set that was released when I kind of really got into Magic. But before that, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! I played Pokemon TCG. I played Magic casually when I really didn't know what I was doing as a kid. So the thought of going from that and playing at kind of a local level in Magic and a regionals level within the UK, because Magic runs a little differently, going from that to then, okay, we're talking about a championship regionally. I don't have the reps to just step into those shoes and know. I've played some tournament Magic. I am not that confident to kind of put myself up against like great players, but playtesting is really important. There's kind of like a difference between card games and esports in that card games have a lot of etiquette that go with what you're doing. There's a lot about being prepared to play a card game that doesn't exist in esports. Things like, preparing a deck list, sourcing cards, sleeving in a particular way that you're used to, that you've brought spares of, deck construction with regards to like legality, and especially in Riftbound, as it just recently changed from the ability to play Chinese cards as well, and mixed language decks. So those things seem insignificant, but I think to not know them as a caster and not to like feel it in the way that you play a card game, I think would do a disservice to being on that broadcast. I think that there are a lot of transferable skills within casting. There's a lot of things that you can do that are similar between games, but when you go to a physical game as opposed to an esport, I've worked on League of Legends, I've worked on Fortnite, I've worked on Wild Rift, I've worked on a bunch of other games, Apex Legends. The preparation extends to like, what do you kind of know about the game, and then what can you get a sense of at a high level. I feel like card games are kind of like a muscle memory thing where you got to really get in there and understand a little bit about what it's like to play in such a grueling, like, long day. That's not to kind of undermine traditional like esports players and the schedule they go through. I have a great appreciation of that from my time, especially on Team Dignitas and on Splice and Mad Lions. So that's definitely not underselling what they do to prepare for their games, but preparing for one kind of like best of one in the old EULCS days, or LEC as it followed with Mad Lions days, is very different, where you know your opponent, you know what you're going up against, and you know kind of like a game plan going in. You have a team, compared to a 1v1 card game where you are going to face a field of multiple different opponents, potentially like 9 in a day, and you just have to roll with it, with being on time. You've got to feed yourself to the right degree. You've got to be able to be in peak condition all the way through day 1, do a grueling run, then wake up and do day 2, and get through, and hopefully you make it through the final. So having even the slightest appreciation for that, I think, is a really important part of casting TCGs, which is hard to replicate because it requires you actually like getting reps at tournaments. So as much as I've been able to kind of get reps through different games in the past, I've been trying to playtest with a group of people locally a little bit more. It's not so much tournament experience at that point, but more just getting used to the cards from specifically Spirit Forge Set 2, knowing kind of like what they look like with regards to like quick recognition. That's quite a specific difference that I don't know that people necessarily appreciate from casting. You have to see a card for like half a second and be able to interpret exactly what that means within like the pace of the game. So just getting reps on playing the cards, understanding the interactions, finding out exactly kind of like what a deck feels like to draw through. For instance, I was playing a bit of Rek'Sai, and I thought the deck played in one way that was a little bit more ready to get units out of the deck. But actually the Phoenix component of the Rek'Sai that I was playing relied so much more of the spells in the deck that it kind of took me for a loop a couple of games to really understand the play pattern and see how that works. So one good thing about playing physically, of course, you've had to proxy a little bit of the set so far, but I've been playing with players from different games, so different ways of thinking about the card game. I'm very Magic-brained from my experience, so a lot of my way of thinking about things is about how you do something in Magic, and Riftbound is quite different. It's something I actually struggled with a little bit when I played Lorcana on the first set. I was like, ooh, I'm so not used to kind of like the more asymmetrical play pattern where I do an entire turn and then you do an entire turn. Riftbound's not quite that way, but certainly when I say like I do a turn, you do a turn, I mean Magic has a lot of interaction on the opponent's turn, whereas there are very specific windows in Riftbound that you can act in. You can only, on your opponent's turn, basically do things in showdowns or at reaction speed, which is similar, but there are some differences that I think Magic players would nod to. Not having an end step is a big one. That's huge in Magic. You just don't tap out, especially I play a lot of control decks. You just don't tap out and then play things in your opponent's end step when you have all the information that you need. And the fact that doesn't exist in Riftbound has taken a while to get used to. And with new cards brings in new interactions and trying to figure out where they go. I think the funniest thing is, because today is the announcement, I've not been able to tell them why I'm testing. I did not get a competitor ticket to Bologna. I had contemplated it and I wanted to. Unfortunately, I didn't get one from the waiting list. So I've just been like, yeah, I'm just, learning for side events, learning to see what I can do. So that's been funny, kind of hearing them talk about how I'll just be sat at the side, and I'm like, yeah, I'll be sat there. I'll not really be involved. Don't worry. I'll get you water and snacks during the day. When it turns out that probably won't be possible. Sorry guys, I won't be able to be the water boy for the event. So playtesting has gone well. There's only so much playtesting you can do. There's only enough hours in the day. But I at least feel relatively confident at kind of like my experience in card games and how that plays in. The thing that's probably more similar to my esports commentary preparation is VOD watching, which for those of you that have never like casted or analyzed a game, the amount of hours of VODs of like replays of games that you can watch. There are more games than you will ever be able to study, and I guarantee you there are games being played by somebody on video somewhere that has an interaction that you may not have seen yet, or that, you know, only the people that have watched that video will know about, and then it'll come up in a game and you're like, oh, I haven't seen that, and everybody will think, well, we saw it last week on this stream, and I'm like, yep, that's just the one I didn't watch. I just haven't been able to watch that. So in between, I've been watching, you know, the China Regionals, I've been watching as many of the other content creators as possible. It's really interesting because we're so early on in a card game that a lot of this content is very formative on how do streams look, how do people talk about the game, how do you discuss interactions. So it's been really helpful to learn interactions, learn different ways that cards play, outside of what I've been able to have the time to do for myself. I'm not full-time casting at the moment. I have a day job that I'm very happy in, which is you know, what takes up my day today. But then obviously, like, the moment I'm done with work, I'm like, okay, how am I gonna segment my time out tonight? How am I gonna make sure that I am utilizing my time as well as I can? So watching VODs has been really important. One thing that has been kind of difficult, that I wasn't expecting to not struggle with, but have to understand, is there's some terminology that people are laying down for Riftbound, which I'm on board with, and I'm not going to fight people for, but they are direct takeovers of the word from Magic that do nothing similar. Just a couple of them. So Cascade is something in Magic that is a mechanic, and there's no point in me talking about what it is. Magic players will know what Cascade does. But in Riftbound, what that means is when you play an equipment, say you have like 3 1-might recruits, to Cascade is to equip the equipment to a 1-might recruit or whatever, to any unit, take just that unit, put it into combat, let the unit die, but you're trading against one unit. Then you equip it to the next recruit for another combat showdown. So basically turning, you know, if hypothetically you've got an equipment that's adding +3, you know, you're going with a 4-might unit and a 4-might unit and a 4-might unit, rather than just everything at once with just one time that you're getting the +3. So it's been interesting, because the first time I heard someone say Cascade, I was like, hang on a second, that mechanic does not exist in Riftbound. So that's been interesting. Miracle is another one. Miracle, Blevins actually helped me out. We'll talk about Blevins in a second with the interview that we did. Helped me out with this one, where it comes from Miracle Rogue, which, being a Hearthstone player, I probably should have put that together, but it's been many a year since I played Hearthstone. Again, it's a Magic and a Hearthstone mechanic, but the Magic mechanic is very different, and one of my favorite Magic mechanics of all time. So it's been interesting having to relearn what Miracle means. But Miracle is basically the draw package that is in purple in Riftbound, basically where you just get Cold Shot, you get Stacked Deck, you get a bunch of stuff. Allows you to draw through your entire deck, and then you put to the bottom of your deck, which is the next one I'm going to talk about, all the cards in a relatively known order. Obviously, when you stack deck, you shuffle the 2 cards, and your opponent can, if they want to, they can cut the 2 cards. So essentially, you get to the late stage of the game, and you know everything in your deck. So the Miracle package basically lets you get to that point, which is what we saw Randy play in China on Sivir, which I love that playstyle of deck. I'm very, very excited to see who in Europe is actually playing that. But the third term I nearly said there is stack, which stack in Magic is what we call the chain. And I've had to unlearn using the word stack for Riftbound throughout Origins, now only to use the word stack in a very different way, which is kind of making my brain break a little bit. But that part of the deck that you know the order of, people are referring to as the stack in Riftbound, so had to learn that one. And then a quick one at the end is push, where push in Riftbound is a movement effect, so something that will move something to a battlefield, away from a battlefield. In Magic, there's a card called Fatal Push. I play a lot of the format that it is extremely prevalent in, and to push something is to kill something directly with a kill spell that fits a specific set of terms and mechanics in the game. So again, I heard someone say, oh, push the unit, and I was like, that's not a kill spell. There are no kill spells in this deck. And yeah, having to relearn that actually literally just means push makes total sense, but my magic brain needed to relearn that. So that's been really interesting. Figuring out what people are doing to follow while also kind of keeping an open mind about what the terminology of the game could look like, should look like, how to talk about the game has been really interesting. A fun challenge on top of just like learning as much from VODs as possible. And the last thing I've been doing is pretty much this video, right? Is doing content as much as I can and casting where possible. So I've done a few streams locally with people from my local game store, which has been really fun. We did a little mini tournament for Spirit Forged that is on my channel, where just using TCG Arena. So that was really rewarding. Let me really take a look at decks before I'd focused on them. I swapped over to Origins kind of at the first or second week of January. From Origins to Spirit Forged about the first or second week of January, just because I was still playing Skirmish, didn't really want to get too in the weeds on set 2 yet, but then jumped into it with a little mini tournaments. That was fun. It was nice to work with Stuart and Counterfeit, who both come from earlier parts of my career with commentary. I'm always happy to work with those guys, and big shout out for them for everything they've done since basically we last casted in TFT, and then Riftbound, Wild Rift, and Riftbound. Too many rifts. So that was really interesting. And then I decided, like, how do I leverage a little bit of my experience with players and games and TCGs and make content, because I don't think people want to watch me play Riftbound so much. I mean, I always will be more than happy to and you know, get in front of a camera and put some cards on a table and turn them sideways. But we'll talk about that in a second. What a great name for a show. But you know, I thought, okay, let's look at some notable players in the scene. Partly because it helps me prepare for Bologna. One of the things about Bologna is, like, you look at, I'm guessing, I don't have the number here, but it's like 1,500 players or something above 1,000, which is wildly different to the majority of my esports casting, where other than open tournaments, which at some point you kind of drift away from the further and further towards the established esport like championships that you get to. Other than open tournaments, there are very few times where I don't know who I'm going to be commentating and who I've been commentating for, like, the weeks leading up to a finals. So you have stories already ingrained, whereas, you know, I can't watch all of the different games that players are going to come from to play Riftbound. One of the coolest things about Riftbound is how many different games players are coming from. You know, you got Magic players, Pokemon players, One Piece players, Digimon players, Gundam players, Hearthstone players, streamers, League of Legends players that have never touched a card game in their life. And there is no way to know every single one of their stories. So my approach is, like, I will take 1 or 2 players a week and try and tell their stories and hope that we can line up getting them on camera. Because I'm like, I at least need to know as many as possible and then know a few more in depth, which is really funny because my first interview was through a friend of a friend, Ethan Wild, who is a regional champion, recently winning in Birmingham for Pokemon TCG. And I thought, cool, this is a recent result. I'm going to get the inside scoop. I'm going to, like, have a really key player in my mind of, like, somebody that's putting up results that I'm going to know plenty about, and that'll be one of my stories to take into the broadcast. And we finished the interview and it was great. Ethan was lovely. We had a good conversation. And then it was like the next day, brought in to the broadcast chat, and Ethan's partner's on the broadcast with me, and she's lovely, and you know, I'm looking forward to working together. But I was like, okay, well, there's the inside track on that one gone. That's that's no longer the feather in my cap that I thought it was. There is clearly no story I can tell about Ethan Wild that his partner won't be able to tell. But, you know, that's the way the world works. It's, you know, at least now I'm prepared anyway. We can have great conversation on the broadcast about that. But My second interviewee was Blevins, who we had about a 30-minute conversation about casting, Riftbound, TCGs, the old days of Magic, which really aren't even that old. I think about Avacyn Restored being like, what, 10, 14 years ago at this point, which for Magic is still within the most recent half of its lifetime. So it's very funny to talk about old Magic in those terms. Really fun conversation. I always enjoy talking with other casters about how their experiences are, what they've been up to, what they're doing, how they prepare, and that kind of fed a little bit into today. Like this morning, I was lucky enough to join the Turn 'em Sideways co-stream for the 4th Chinese regional, which a big thank you to the team over at Turn 'em Sideways. I have a lot of respect for the content that they're doing. The team I was on with today, a number of a much wider set of guests, but you know, shout outs to Casanova, Charmer, Blevins, and Kuvi. The thwunk and a twunk line killed me, but it was early in the morning and I didn't clock it at first until you were looking for a chuckle, and I was like, damn, I've missed it. I am on board with that speaks directly to me and my humor. But yeah, big shout out to the Turn 'em Sideways crew. I would love to be doing more with them, and if they'll have me on for more co-streams, I would absolutely be happy to. And if we can get them in the plays area, that would be fun. It's always fun to do a featured match with people who are so well regarded in the community. It'd be fun if the Turn 'em Sideways crew ended up making it on stream for the main event, sat in the player chairs. Okay, I've been babbling for like 22 minutes now. So I hope this gave a little bit of an overview of what I've been doing over the past couple of weeks to prepare. This is like step 1 of preparation. Step 2 is I have my pre-rift tomorrow, so I'm finally going to get some actual Spirit Forge cards to play with. I'm going to be able to determine kind of like the decks that are going to be top of the meta for Bologna, or at least that we're anticipating. It's a little too early to finalize that understanding for now. We need to see the rest of the regionals. We need to see exactly how the cards tech out with the way that people construct their decks. So there's room for surprises. We've seen Draven start to drop off a teeny bit just with the way that people are understanding the play patterns. So I'm not like preparing final deck list understanding yet. There's for the tournaments right now it makes sense, but might not necessarily reflect Bologna, so I need to create some living documents of what goes into each deck and how it builds. All of that is going to be in my next video, which hopefully will release like the day I'm traveling to Bologna, which is basically about 2 weeks away, a couple days before that. So keep an eye out for that video. Like the video, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try and put out more interviews between me recording this and you seeing this, so hopefully you've seen some more interviews, and hopefully you're enjoying the content as well, and I will see you when I get to Bologna.